Hey y'all, welcome back to Right at the Wire. Well, as part of our Belmont card series, we're going to tackle the late pick four for Saturday's card at Belmont. So let's take a look at the sequence. First leg of the pick four is the 7th at Belmont. It's a maiden special weight for 3-year-olds and up, run on the turf at a mile and a 16th. And noting the configuration, it's run on the Widener course, so it's not 2 turns. It's more of a turn and a half because it's run out of a chute. So we want to keep that in mind. Speed horses maybe can carry it a little bit longer, a little bit of an advantage, perhaps. So let's keep that in mind as we look at the horses. Number 1 is Certified Lover Boy. He's trained by Ray Handel, and his barn started to meet off pretty hot, but it's starting to cool down. So maybe we don't give his charges quite the same cachet they had last time. His first effort to debut at 3 did elicit a career high buyer, and it was at a mile and an 1/8. So that's encouraging. However, I really didn't do much running late and seemed to fall back fairly quickly. So would need a fair amount of improvement here. And this is a pretty salty maiden group, so I'm going to look elsewhere. Number 2 is Cumberland, trained by George Weaver, and you got Joel Rosario in the irons. Good turf rider, and this one likes to go on the front end. And you see back at in March at a mile in Gulfstream, I was on the front end and nearly pulled it off, and only lost to Kalick, who is a pretty good turf horse. So I think there's some talent here. Coming off the freshening, should be ready to roll, and it doesn't look like there's a lot of early speed in this race, so this one could have a good chance to steal it. The only concern it might have is that horses that like that the Gulfstream turf course sometimes don't translate to other tracks, and that's the only thing that I'm kind of concerned about a little bit. But this one is George Weaver's good off the freshening over an extended period of time, and I have faith that they'll run a good race. So I'm going to use this one mainly for the front end potential and the last high buyer. When Love Takes Over, the last race was kind of a cattle call at the finish. Rated pretty well and did get a career high buyer. For the first time on turf, so there's some encouraging things there. The only concern I had was it just didn't quite have enough in the stretch to take it down, and had every chance to. So that it was the first effort on turf, but if you get that close and you don't take it down, especially when a lot of others were catching up in the stretch, that kind of gives me a little bit of a concern. So I probably want a price if I was going to use this one. I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to, but I'm going to look elsewhere. Balthazar is another one who's been knocking on the door, trained by Neil Drysdale, and the last one at Keeneland was another one where it was a pretty wide open race and a big cattle call at the finish. You see this one rates and just off the speed as he's done in the last couple at a mile, and again hasn't been able to get the job done, and that kind of bothers me a little bit. The other thing is that this one seems to be plateauing as well, so I'm not sure we could expect improvement on this one. I think this one will probably go off at a pretty short price, but it seems to me this one's a little shaky. So again, wouldn't blame you if you want to use. There are blinkers going on, so that's a little bit of something. But aside from that, I think there's better value elsewhere. Pavon is a first-time starter, and the sire is Oscar Performance, who's an excellent first-time turf sire. He gets 16% with first-time turfers, so 20% overall. So he's a really good first-time sire. So this one has that working for him. Jorge Abreu is good with first-time starters as well. So it's a positive scenario. You do see the works are pretty good. They're spaced out pretty nicely. You like to see that, and a couple of stamina building works as well. Jose Ortiz in the irons. You should, there's really no reason not to include this one. It's just that there is always the specter of a first-time starter, and this is a pretty good field. So, again, if the price is right, I wouldn't talk you out of using this one at all. Ohana Honor is trained by Shug McGahee, and you got Flavian Pratt aboard, so immediately that would raise the eyebrow, and those are good connections. But This one is one that it looks to be plateauing a little bit to me. The first time on turf was a solid effort, but again, it was in that race with When Love Takes Over, and this one was coming late with a bunch of others, and really the issue more than anything else. You look at the prior form, and this one's kept some pretty good company. You know, General Jim and Tapit Trice. Let It Ride, Scotland. So there's been some good ones. This one's has been running against. I would have thought moving to turf with that kind of back class, this one would have taken down the last one pretty easily and didn't. So that's kind of an issue. Shug McGahee is 9% second off the layoff in this spot. And so that is another one thing that doesn't get me real excited. Again, I wouldn't talk you out of using this one at all. If you chose to, but I think there's other value elsewhere, and that's why I'm probably not going to use. The price will be a little short. Flyride is very interesting to me. Look at the back class here. You got General Jim, a stakes winner. He debuted at a 1 1/16 on turf, and this one was right behind him. The second race, they thought enough to put this one in the Pilgrim. He runs against Major Dude, who's a major turf player for the 3-year-old turf class, which is a pretty good one. The third start, he goes back to the maiden level, and who's he run against? Ari Gold, who comes back to win a stakes in his next start. So this one has been keeping really good company, has been freshened up. I'm expecting a really solid race. You get Manny Franco aboard, who's a good jockey. So I think because of some of the other talent in here, you're likely to, this one might get hidden a little bit, and you're likely to get some decent value. So I really like this one in the spot, and I'm going to use. Number 8 is redistricting. Chad Brown to Rod Ortiz, first-time starter at Belmont on turf for Claridge Stables. Enough said, right? I mean, this one's by Kingman, who's a great first-time starter. And the only thing I would say is the dam is 0 for 6 in turf routes, but 3 for 9 in turf sprints. Just a little something. She's by Monjou, though, who was an awesome turf horse overseas. So there's tons of great grass pedigree here. And what Chad Brown does with first-time starters makes this one an obvious use, and shouldn't be any surprise if this one takes it down. Number 9 is Arrow of Time, trained by Tom Morley, another one who the barn was doing really well to start and is still doing okay. By Knott this time, who's a great first-time starter sire, and 16% with turf and 20% overall first-time starters, kind of like a lot like Oscar Performance. So there's really the dam didn't offer a whole lot as far as embellishment and getting you more excited about this one. Tom Morley is okay with first-time starters, but not great. So he's 8%. So I mean, you can kind of go either way. There is other talent in this race. If I was to use, and you know, again, if I could definitely see a case being made for this one. I would want a price, though. The second leg of the late pick 4 is the 8th race at Belmont, and it's a state-bred or New York-bred allowance N1X, non-winners at 2 lifetime for 3-year-olds and up. And it's run on the dirt on 1 1/16, and as we know at Belmont, that means a 1-turn race as opposed to 2. Sapphilo's Mission is number 1, trained by Linda Rice, and nearly took him all the way in the last one. Was on the lead, saved all the ground on the rail the whole time, yet couldn't hold the lead, so that's a little bit of a red flag. You see this one's been pretty competitive in the N1X state-bred level for quite some time, but hasn't registered a win and hasn't graduated. So the longer that goes on, the more you got to kind of wonder about it a little bit. The other thing you'd note is in the last couple, they were at a mile, and the fractions are getting a little quicker each time, so I think this one is improving and comes into the race in a pretty good spot, having had a little bit of a freshening. So I think this one's a logical use, but it's going to have some company on the front end, and it's by no means a guarantee that this one will wire the field. 42 Ace is trained by Michelle Giangiulo, who's cold for the meet. This one is coming in 3rd off the layoff. Had to drop in class to get the win last time and wired the field. And the thing more than that's a little troubling to me is that every time this one has hit the career high buyer, which is 3 times, has hit 81, you see there's been a regression each time afterwards. So that gives me a little bit of pause. 7-2 I think is a little short, especially for a horse who was running at the N1X level and wasn't had mixed results. So I probably would, I think I'm going to pass. Inspector is kind of interesting. You got Steve Asmussen and Jose Lezcano, who's a really hot jockey right now, coming in second off the layoff. The big issue I have is that this one hasn't actually won a race yet. Got the nod through disqualification. However, you can see that this horse debuted with the career high buyer at 3, so that's a good sign, and is coming second off the layoff. And for Steve Asmussen, that's another good sign. So if you could get past the fact that this one hasn't actually won a race, and if you look at the prior efforts at 2, where Lezcano was the A rider, and you know, I mean, I think it shows that there's obviously been some improvement with the downtime, and in this race, I mean, this will be rating off the pace, and there should be a couple on the engine could benefit from a potential meltdown. So, you know, at 10-1, this is maybe one you think about. Just in this particular shape of the race, might be a good fit. Hurricane Andrew isn't good enough. That's the bottom line. Efforts have all been on turf. The 2 dirt efforts have been pretty dreadful, and I really can't really figure out why this horse is in this race, and it's 7 years old. 1 for 17. I'm no go. Kaz Palace is trained by Dimitris Siniflas. I don't know a whole lot about, but the first effort against Older was on turf at a mile and was a dud. So back to dirt they go. And in that scenario, this one has been okay. Does have a couple of wins, and actually won at the N1X level at Penn National. So that has one little thing over the others, and that has 2 wins. However, the buyers look a little light to be competitive at this class level here. And at 20-1, I mean, you are getting a decent price, but I think this one, particularly since it looks to like to run on the front end, probably going to be a little out of luck here, so I would probably pass. Ormstown is kind of interesting. Just got the diploma, and pretty handily at the same distance against state breds and against Older as a 3-year-old, which is a pretty good sign. Has been improving steadily, and this one finally stretching out seems to agree with, so you have to like that. David Donk is 18% third off the layoff, but he's 0 for 14 first time against winners, and so that's a little bit of a concern. If this one tries to go back on the front end again, might be up against it a little bit with the 1 horse. You do get Joel Rosario, which is a nice fit, but note that Jose Ortiz bounded off this one for the horse next door. So there's mixed feelings on this one at 5-1. I mean, maybe that's a little short for me, but I could see using. I wouldn't. I mean, there are some things to like. Shadow Dragon, we saw on the Derby Trail earlier this year. You see the Holy Bull, Fountain of Youth, and Wood Memorial, trained by Belmont, and you get Jose Ortiz aboard. Has had a bit of a freshening since the Wood, where I think this one just finally hit the wall class-wise more than anything else. Had shown a good improvement from the 2-year-old campaign to 3 in the Holy Bull at 1 1/16. Tends to like to run from the clouds. That's one little bit of a disadvantage in a 1-turn race, I would say, but you do have a couple of horses who are going to be on the engine, so there might be a pace scenario that would be agreeable here. I certainly wouldn't want to doubt Belmont. I mean, he places his horse well, and this one coming with the big class relief, particularly against state breds, I think is a good fit for this one. So I think it's a logical win candidate, and in some respects you could even single. Union Fleet, it just seems to run the same race, just kind of runs around the track, really. If you look at those last 4, Particularly the drop to State Bread Company really didn't help matters, and that's kind of a red flag. Seems to have plateaued and just kind of runs around the track without really making a significant move to be competitive, and you can't really like that, and really just hasn't had any excuses, and so I don't want to bother with a horse like this. So this race is kind of interesting. There aren't too many ways to go, I don't think. But this might be an opportunity for value play, particularly when you consider Shadow Dragon runs from so far behind in a one-turn race. Third leg of the late pick four is the 9th, and it's the Grade 2 Pennine RIdge Stakes, and this is a good one. It's about 1.1 miles on the inner turf for 3-year-olds, and number 1 is Lachey's, and he's doing pretty well. I mean, he had a pretty good effort last time in the Pilgrim, but is debuting at 3, and it was kind of a strange ride he got last time. He was forwardly placed off the break, and then for some reason Jose Ortiz took him all the way back, and then he re-rallied. So he did some running here. I think he showed some talent. I'd like to see a tightener before this one goes into graded stakes company. I think you could probably use it. So just for that reason, more than anything else, I'm going to wait one before I think about him. Word has it Sherrar will be a scratch, and he's going to run at Churchill Downs in the Audubon. So we won't even talk about him, and I think he'd be a moderate player in here. Belluni is one of 3 that Chad Brown has in this race, and you get Jose Ortiz aboard. The last race was pretty good, considering this one had to check really sharply in the stretch and was able to re-rally and take it down. The buyer was a little light for this one, though, and I don't know that was the greatest of companies he was running against. It also took him a little while to find his best, so maybe underneath, I think, but I think there's others better suited to win this race. SIlver Knott, it shouldn't need any introduction. Ran in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last year as the favorite, and ran a really solid race. Got a close second to Victoria Road. Just raced in the 2,000 guineas, so that's pretty ambitious. So they think fairly highly of this one, and he didn't run too bad, but he weakened late, and we're not going to hold that against him. The turf is a little firmer here, and it seems that soft isn't necessarily what this one likes, so this would probably be a better spot. Charlie Appleby, you have to respect. I mean, he's just lights out with shipping his horses in graded stakes, so this one's an obvious use. Congruent, I've made no bones about my disdain for this horse. He's extremely inconsistent. It couldn't be a better thing for him to go to a trainer like Chad Brown. So I think that if there's anything to fix here, I think Chad Brown can fix it. Will it be enough to be competitive in here for coming off the layoff? Possibly. This one has showed some talent. He is a tappet, though, and he's 3 years old, so you know that's stuff that you kind of, those mental issues sometimes are the last thing to go. So at 10-1, he's intriguing at a price, because if he runs back to that John Battaglia 91, then that would put him right in the mix here. Now, he needs some pace to run to, and he's likely not going to get it here. But he's kind of intriguing, and as an alternative to the chalk, I mean, it's, you know, I wouldn't talk you out of using. Khalik is one of the other Chad Browns, and you do get a Rod Ortiz aboard, so right then and there, that's the legitimate win candidate. This one has been getting better with every single start, which is something you always like to see, coming in third off the layoff. Won an allowance or optional claimer last time from the on the engine, and there's really no other pace in this race, so I expect this one to go right to the lead and try to slow things down. Seems very capable, and you know, the fact that this one's improving, another step forward's likely, and I think you probably have to put on your tickets to try to steal one. Freedom Trail is the opposite of Khalik, and that this one needs pace to run to, and is going to come from the clouds, and has been making slow, steady improvement, but doesn't really look like this would be a spot where he'd have enough to be competitive. There's probably not going to be the pace that he needs to run his best race. If you like him at 12-1, I think under is a better bet, but not as a win candidate. Far Bridge is one that I liked a lot, and up and going into the American turf, and you see he just missed it. Webslinger got the nod. He had a little more pace to run to than he's going to get here. You see two back. He had a two back and three back. He had really good pace to run to, and I think that would improve his chances. I think this one has talent. The concern I have, his class level of running, although he did get a 93 in the last one, it didn't improve from his previous start. So sometimes that can signal a horse is about to plateau. Still, that last race would put him very competitive in this race, and I think you have to use. But if you want to shorten your ticket, I also could see tossing this one. The last leg of the late Big Four is the 10th race, and it's a state-bred maiden claimer, 40,000 for 3-year-olds and up, and it's run on the turf at 1 1/16. And again, it is a turn and a half because it's run out of a chute, so we want to keep that in mind. Number 1 is Hari. It's a Belmont first-time starter on the rail, so I'm a little reticent to include this one. This isn't the greatest of fields, but he's only 9% in this particular spot, and so I have a little. I think I'd probably want to wait one, even though you got Jose Ortiz. Just gonna wait one. Barry the Builder, sort of. I think this one I've had enough of. I liked him a little bit in the last race, but he hasn't really shown any improvement. He did get a career high buyer, but he gave up. He had a chance to take control of the last race, and he just gave it up fairly readily. So I'm done with him. He looks to me like he's going to be in this class for a while. War Prince is. Had every chance in the last one as well, but he is improving, and that is something. Rob Atras is 19% third off the layoff, so it was only the third start last time, so I'll give this one another chance. Being on the inside maybe gives a little bit of an edge. Atlantis Acuna really didn't show very much, and another one came out at 3 with a career high buyer, but didn't really show much in the way of effort, and pretty much gave it up about midway through the race, so kind of hard to back. Fluorescent Bay was at the rear in that race, and you can see really didn't do much running either, so there's really no reason to get excited about this one, so I'll pass on it as well. Just for Luck ran in there are two basically races to look at. One is it was won by It's All Coming Together, and the other one was won by Mama Band Me. So this one ran in the All Coming Together race, and you see didn't do any running whatsoever, and seems to be in a holding pattern. The jockey and trainer are at 27%. So that is something, but you see Katie Davis was on this horse the last time and didn't do much running at all, so I'll pass. Holding Au Pair is a first-time starter, and Randy Persaud's not really known for that, but looking at Lucky, it is an okay turf start, but really what's intriguing is the dam. Steel Shed is 2 for 7 with firsters, so you do get a little bit of precocity here. And the tab, there's some pretty good spacing, and they've been working this one a while. So I would think at 30-1, this one would be a pretty good placement in here, and I'm going to use. Silent Running was trained by Jimmy Bond, and we kind of liked this one last time. Thought it might produce a pretty good effort, and for a little while looked okay, and then just sort of gave it up in the stretch. And it's obviously pretty disconcerting to have a poor race like that when debuting at 4. Has run some better efforts on turf, and certainly if you go back to that June 30th race, that would probably win it here. So I can go either way with this one, but that last race just was just really not very good. So I'm gonna pass on this one, even with Flavian Pratt in the irons, and because he was there last time too. The Thrill of Victory looks to me like a real logical one. Mike Maker is 23% and 59% in the money with a $1.99 ROI, second off maiden claiming turf roots. This one came off a career high buyer to debut at 3. And Mike Maker, that's what he does, is stretch horses out on turf. So I think this is a really good spot for this one. Didn't do bad with the debut at 3. Ran on fairly well, and may have just needed a race. So I think this is a logical spot, especially with Jose Lezcano aboard, who's a hot jockey. Sea Cruise, it's really hard to back a horse who's, granted, hasn't been around since August of last year, but those first 3 efforts wouldn't even be close to getting it done here. Perhaps this one is eligible to improve with the long layoff, but there's not enough here to get me excited about this one. Richard Hendricks, don't know much about him, but I don't think he's very good at bringing a horse off a long layoff. Samana Beach, what can you say? A bunch of zeros, that's enough for me. It is the first time on turf, and Steve Jerkins, if he's anything like his grandfather, he might be pretty good. But I'm going to wait one. There's just not enough here for me to get excited about. I don't see a great first-time turf sire or any type of indication that this would be a niche for Steve Jerkins at this point. So I have 50 to 1. I'll pass. Bad Larry is another one by Mike Maker. And you do get Dylan Davis in the irons, and you see that bullet for the last work on May 28th, the first of 56. So I think this one's feeling pretty good. That's enough for me to include going first time on the turf for a trainer who's really good with stretching horses out on the turf. I think it's logical, especially first off the claim where he's 23%. We do have some also eligibles. Waffler didn't do much running in the debut, and I'm not going to expect a monster improvement that would make this one a contender. So I will pass on this one. Miracle Mike is kind of logical. Todd Pletcher, you don't like to see them drop into a maiden claiming from Todd Pletcher, but at least this one ran pretty well and got a 3rd. You got Rod Ortiz aboard. I think this one's also dressed up again, like he was in the last one. Do you have to use? Yeah, probably, just in this field, because he can run a little bit, and that's more than you can say for most of them. So if he draws in, Miracle Mike, you probably want to use. Eternal Glory, I don't see anything in the way of improvement, and Amira Chikekli is a cold barn right now, and so I just can't recommend, especially with the class hike. Awesome Force, trained by Gregory DePrima, and this one ran in class in a different race, actually, and was on the engine most of the way until fading for 6th. At the outside, with this configuration for this race, to run that style would be very difficult from the 16 hole. So I would probably pass just based upon that. So here's what our ticket looks like for the late pick 4 on Saturday. In the 7th, we're going to use 2, 7, 8. In the 8th, we're going to use 1, 3, and 7. In the 9th, we're going to use 4, 6, and 8. And I put the 5 congruent here. If you want a little value on your ticket and spend a little extra money for it, I could see that one as kind of a one to upset the apple cart with Chad Brown being the new trainer. And in the 10th, we're going to use 3, 7, 9, 12. And if the 14 draws in, I would use as well. So that's a 3 times 3 is 9 times 3 is 27 times 4 is what, 108. So on a 50-cent base, that's a $54 ticket. I think that gives us a pretty good shot at taking it down. Pretty good stakes race, the Pennine RIdge, I think, and I'm really interested to see how Congruent does with Chad Brown as the trainer. I think he's really interesting at 10 to 1, and kind of hard to put him on the ticket. But if you want to be bold and spend a little extra money, I could see doing it for sure. We will have more with our Belmont card series as we approach the Belmont Stakes, and every day they have racing, we'll have a sequence for you. I'm going to try to do some more for the West Coast, maybe some more golden hours coming up. And we'll have our Elements of Handicapping series for the Belmont. We'll start that early next week. Looks like the field's defined. We're going to have 10, so we'll have a pretty decent field for the running. If you do like what you see here, of course, please like and subscribe. And we do thank you for coming by. And I'll be talking to you in the very near future. And until then, be well.